Hello everyone, and welcome to a new video of mine. Today we'll be talking about the new construction PTS notes that were released yesterday. I know I'm a little late on the whole party. Despite being one of the first people who found them, I had a lot of calculus homework to do. In any case, if you haven't read them, go read it. The description is down in the link for it is down in the description. My bad about that. Anyways, I also have one more thing to tell you. There are no pictures in this. I know. It's painful. There's just a lot of slides with words on them, and I'm talking about them. So please just minimize this if you want, and just do something in the background. Maybe play PlanetSide 2 with the volume turned down or something. In any case, let's dive right into it, shall we? Alright, so we'll start with the so-so stuff, which is most of the new structures added to the game. Well, the first pro is, even though they look cool, they're pretty massive and rather difficult to work with, especially when you're trying to get them to play nice with other construction items. Also, it seems like the command center is trying to be an all-in-one construction building, which completely negates the whole purpose of creativity in construction. I don't know, that's just a weird thought of mine. The other thing I've noticed that was kind of so-so depending on who you are. I view this as bad, but some people view this as a positive. Structures will now be having more spotlights added to them, and they also double as, well, dark lights, which means cloakers can't really do jack against a fully finished building, or fully finished base, rather than when they're first building. So this is basically a hard nerf to cloakers. I'm sorry, guys. You apparently don't have much for love. Even though the person who should hate them the most, me, actually rather adores the fact that you guys pose an actual threat to us. So take that for what it is. Now, there is some actual good stuff to construction. Overall, we've been getting a lot of UI improvements that will just make it easier rather to figure out what's going on the battlefield or around our construction base. Your ants will now have max range cordium sensors by default, as well as a max rank cordium tank. That should mean you have 10,000 storage rather than the typical 8,000. So, yay, right? Yeah. We also have a couple new models for some old buildings, like the bunker. I mean, that was something we needed for a while. The original bunker was really more of a hazard to the defenders and an advantage to attackers. So there's that. We also got new spawn structure name tags. Yet I had to reread this one a few times. They put name tags on things that could spawn infantry, which, I mean, I guess that tells you who's the main builder for the base generally, but not consistently. So, oh well. You can at least figure out who is the main builder of the base and go talk to them about adding or subtracting stuff to the base. Finally, the last good thing we got going for us is construction missions, or dailies, I should say. This should help get people dipping their toes into construction more regularly and help promote future growth in the topic of construction overall. Very positive. Unfortunately for us, there's going to be a bit of some negatives for construction. As sad as that is to say. Actually, how I would like to metaphorically paint the picture for everyone. Imagine construction as a person. Now imagine they just got kicked in the crotch, their legs knocked out, then grabbed by the tie and repeatedly punched in the face. Yeah, that should just paint a very vivid image of what's about to come from this point onward. That's kind of sad. But let's get right into it, shall we? No passive cordium drain. So basically all cordium silos, or all bases at this point, no longer passively drain cordium while just sitting there. On paper, this sounds like a great quality of life feature, but in practice, this basically means a lot of bases that are left abandoned over time will just sit there idly, taking up space from other builders continuously until someone destroys them. Which, I don't know about you, but that actually seems to be doing more damage than helping people. The next thing we got here is construction outposts. Basically, if you remember like Tap Way Station where people could build a base or something on them, or geographical outposts or something. Anyways, a lot of these construction bases where they have like a capture point. Well, the capture points, from what I could tell, been replaced by a silo that just naturally spawns more cordium inside of it. Which, okay, that's weird. But the problem is, no one owns this silo. It's owned by the faction, so all members of your faction can build at it. This is going to lead to poor leadership and people trying to just, compete for real estate on this silo, which, that's going to lead to some infighting, or at least I think it's going to. Furthermore, everyone wants to build a flail and glaive here because, I forgot to mention that with the passive cordium drain. The flail and glaive in the orbital strike uplink will be burning cordium only when you fire them. So there's that going for it. So now everyone wants to build on a construction outpost because you just have infinite cordium for using your flail indefinitely. Or just pulling random stuff left and right. You might want to try and pull a silo out of these construction outpost silos, just so you can have a fallback base to just kind of call your own. Yeah, that might be best. Oh boy, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The next one, this is kind of a small gripe of mine. They did add a one-time use tutorial to kind of help people get into construction. My problem with this is it's one-time use content, which means it's content that's never going to be recycled over and over. So again, this takes up dev time for a one-time experience. And what about people who go on a hiatus for a while or just don't use construction for a while and they need a refresher? Well, shouldn't they be able to go through the tutorial a second time just without the rewards? I don't know. I feel like that should be an option for that. So my next gripe over all this is we're getting new structures that are pretty massive, right? Well, that's going to be pretty hard to build them. But on top of that, we're not getting any building placement improvements. So realistically, we'll only be able to build on flat land effectively. Or in a few spots where the terrain leveling isn't too bad. But basically, it's going to be really difficult to put these bases together, as it already is difficult for most people. And we're not making the process any easier. So it would be nice to make the process easier for people to just kind of freely get into it and out of it. Finally, we're not fixing the ant storage problem, and if you're wondering what I mean by the ant storage problem, the ant storage can only store up to 10k for cordium, but cordium is stored in multiples of 4k until you hit the 35k variant. This means you will always leave about 2k of cordium left on the ground for some other bloat to just kind of run into, and they're like, oh, it's supposed to be 8k, but now it's only 2k. That's rather disappointing. So, yeah, I kind of wish they would just improve the ant storage from 10k to 12k, because then it keeps with that 4k multiple situation. Ah, you thought we were done here. No, we got more problems to bring up. Oh, these are probably the two biggest deal killers for this whole update. The first being, modules have been reworked. To put it frank, the capture the flag mechanic has not been panning very well across territories for the game, and the developers don't want to call it wasted material, or content I should say. So they're recycling it into construction because why not? We need to make this content useful somehow. Unfortunately, it's not very effective for construction either, as now we're basically also decreasing the performance of every module in construction while increasing the management needed to work with them. Furthermore, we just have a bunch of redundant modules because, like, for example, the repair module just kind of outdoes all the other passive modules that you can have in your construction bases. Furthermore, some of these modules say they should be helpful, but are just straight up a hindrance to the base out overall. For example, the projectile shield or fortress shield modules straight up, well, put it this way, put two-way shields on all of your doors and windows of construction, effectively making it a base that could attack anyone around the construction base, unable to attack anyone literally touching it. I don't know about you, but that's a kind of a big dumb moment. Just why would anyone put this in? Yeah, I just don't even have words for that. The Fortress Shield one puts a little dome around the structure. This one kind of makes me ask the question, is it putting a dome around like the entire construction base, or is it putting a dome around the one structure? And if it does that, well, I mean, putting a big dome around the whole construction area can be useful to get heat off of you and force people to get closer in to attack, and you can kind of attack back at arm's length. That's sometimes useful. But if it's just around the individual construction items, well, this is just pretty dumb, as it's back to the first one where you just can't shoot anything anymore. Also, I have to ask the question, what is the durability of these shields? Finally, we have the fact that modules can be overcharged like generators, so we're recycling the generator mechanic from biolabs, tech plants, and amp stations into construction now. Interesting, but why are we doing that with modules? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you can overcharge it and then it'll blow up the module and damage the structure, or if there's nothing in there, you can put a harmful module like accordion bomb into it and do massive damage to it. But I have to ask this question. When are you going to have access to these module slots when you're the enemy? If the base is doing its job, you're never going to see them. Still, these high risk, high reward things just seem like more of a hindrance to the player than a benefit. I mean, the only ones that can really get in there now is the light assault, especially since the cloaker now has dark lights on them wherever they go inside of a construction base. Finally, we are moving to removed automation. Oh, this is a big one for a lot of people. A lot of people have been crying out for this, to remove pain spires, AI modules, and the EMP effect from sky shields. Well, are you just trying to remove all things that give a construction player advantages? Because, frankly, if the construction player can't actually have an advantage, there is absolutely no point in building the base to begin with. That is just the case in point. Why would humans build a fortress in real life if the fortress did not give an advantage to the defenders? Think about that for a moment. Though, to be fair and more specifics, the pain spiral is mostly used to keep enemy infantry outside of your structures, like the infantry tower, your pillbox, and your bunker, and prevent them from setting up a router or a spawn beacon and just effectively weaponizing that structure against the construction itself. And they can get in there pretty easily thanks to this thing called a light assault. Yes, that's a real thing. AI modules, well, construction players need more guns because generally when a base gets attacked, it's about a 5 to 10 minute wait before players actually take notice and come to defend a player base. During those 5 to 10 minutes, the player needs some extra guns to help them. Now, arguably, the AIs are a little too pinpoint accurate, I will agree on, and could use some toning down. That said, they shouldn't be straight up removed. And with the Skywall EMP effect removed, well, if someone Gal drops or Valk drops a squad into your base, well, now that the automation process is offline and you only have the 1 to 5 people who already built the base there, well, they're going to die instantly because they're outnumbered, and then the base is just going to fall. Simple as that. As simple as that. Unless the new spawn rooms have some ludicrous amount of HP that just makes them ungodly and more like a developer base, but at that point that's not really construction, and again, they kind of take creativity away from the builder. So, don't know what to say there. And finally, yes, there is an end to the bad news, though it is kind of sad that there's still more bad news to be talked about. Artillery. So, artillery, I was always in the fence of saying artillery needs to be reworked because artillery is not fun to play against. Though it's not much fun to play with the artillery either because there's all the logistics of running around with a dart gun and trying not to die, and then if you do die, you have to get a new dart, and yeah, it's just a mess. There is the fun times where you can get like 250 kill streaks, but let's be honest, very few of us will ever get those. And they're not really worth that dopamine rush for that one incident. Honestly, I've always felt like artillery was a bit wonky because if you're on the receiving end, you have no way of knowing it's coming at you half the time because sometimes it doesn't even render. Which, I don't know, you just feel like you're being cheated out of lives at that point. And now they have to use a new LAS targeting system, which, okay, so you wait 3 seconds and you have the same effect. That's not a big deal. Also, artillery has been streamlined. Yeah, you heard me right, because modules have been removed or reworked, my bad. They've been streamlined. You now just need the artillery battery itself and no longer need the module to power it, per se. Finally, we have Osher, the construction continent that we all kind of log off on whenever it becomes the only continent in rotation. Though, if you do stay around for it, it just turns into the mere Bay continent, let's be honest. Kind of like how Hassan is the Nascent's Defiance continent, and Indar is the Crown continent? Yeah, that's right. And Amrish is the Ascent continent. It's funny how these center bases just become literally the center of all the attention. Maybe the map design could use some reworking in that perspective. Anyways, Osher is getting a big overhaul, and basically Rao is doubling down on water gameplay overall. He wants more people to spawn, what are they called, tyrants, and engage in underwater bases more often. The problem is, if that were really engaging for players right now, Osher would get a lot more activity when it becomes the only continent. But because that's not the case, this is just doubling down on a feature no one likes. So, I don't know. I honestly feel like the biggest problem of Osher right now is it needs more bridges between the islands. It needs the islands to be lower with less rock climbs. And overall. And then basically the entire seafloor of the continent needs to just have more flora with a couple underwater bases that don't have water in them. Maybe like water windows or something to just kind of like see the sporadicness or, the glory of the underwaterness. Oh man, the words are slipping my head. But you can even add like fish and whatnot swimming about to really add to the aesthetics. So, what are my final thoughts going on here? Pretty much, Ral has gone with the approach of how to make construction fun is to basically nerf construction repeatedly. Well, that's it. He's oversimplifying it and he's nerfing it at the same time. There's no arguing about that. It's just the case. That said, I do have some of my own thoughts on how to improve construction. I have found generally people have more fun around these bases when they can do this thing called lay siege to a construction base where they can actually see some visible progress going on. This could mean things like adding a deployable jump pad. We used to have those for Lysol for a short while, where basically a Lysol could put down like a jump pad and anyone who can use it to jump over a wall, which opens up a new point of entry to attack a construction base, and becomes every builder's worst nightmare. I could just see on their faces them screaming as a line of mech suits just jump over the wall and starts tearing everyone up inside. That just reminds me of a fun scene from Hellsing Ultimate Bridge. No. Some other ideas that we could do to improve construction sieging would be to add bigger deployable hard light barriers. So like the heavies could throw down a bigger halo shield per se that people could take cover behind so they don't get sniped so easily when they're moving up to a construction wall. You know, little things like that. Heck, we even have weapons in the game. Currently, the Vonu Slicer and the NC Railjack can shoot clean through a one-way shield and even score a few head kills for you if you want it. Add more rifles that just negate one-way shield damage or one-way shields. I mean, you add aquatic weapons for crying out loud. Just add weapons specifically tailored for construction fights. Heck, even fix the ramp for construction and let so a construction builder could just throw down a ramp that scales a frickin' wall. And people can just pour over the walls and whatnot. Make it so people can build bases faster so they can build a counter base to a assault base or to a defense base and actually have the two fort scenario with TF2 or whatever going on and inch their way up. Do stuff like that and people actually have more fun. Having to do artillery warfare is not fun for anyone. Furthermore, dropping 2 pocket OSs on a construction base is not fun for anyone. And then there's the fact that construction bases right now can only build in the middle of nowhere, thus making them pointless to begin with. Let them build next to a construction base like the northern side of Wuku Ecological on Amrish. People love that fight because the defenders have a spawn and the attackers who have a construction base have a hard spawn themselves, and it just keeps going with a back and forth motion for a while. And finally, just finally, add some construction flavor between the factions. Add faction flavor into construction. All construction bases look the same and play the same. Why does a Vonu construction base play exactly the same way as a NC New Conglomerate base? It doesn't make any sense and kind of goes against the 3-faction rule, 4-faction rule at this point. Add some variety. Spice it up. Well, and with that said, I have basically spoken about my piece about this. How do I feel like this is all going to boil down? Well, right now we have a lot of people who are going to have the, oh, new stuff, it's all shiny and whatnot. But ultimately, after about 1 week to a month, it's going to wear out and people are just going to stop building frontline bases and build vehicle pull bases and artillery bases. Because building a frontline base is just a waste of time and effort when they die so fast with this new system. And you made making a vehicle pull base as simple as putting down a silo and a command center, and that's it. The command center has a spawn for infantry and vehicles. I mean, yeah, it's massive, but it's a base in one structure. And we're going to have the map dotted with lots and lots of empty, abandoned bases because people are building bases in attempts of trying to get a fight going at their base when the battle lines move. But when people know there's a base there, they're not going to push them, or they're just going to redeploy to another lattice. or they just skip the base altogether and capture the base, the developer base behind them, and then just keep pushing. You're not really addressing the problems, mate. You're just kind of circumnavigating them. In any case, that's enough of me ranting about this, and yeah, I'll definitely be giving this a try Friday. In any case, that's everything I have to say. I'll catch you all on the next one, and have a good one, and sorry for no pictures. See ya.